It was like stimulating the academic part of my brain, where I like to, because it's very similar to what I did for a living in the military. I used to research topics, find out the various aspects of it, write it up, essentially telling a story. And that kind of also, the through line from that to my original career aspirations as a wide-eyed teenager where I wanted to go to film school.
Have you ever wondered not so much where model kits came from, we know where they came from, someone decided to build them and make them and produce them and distribute them, etc., but more along the lines of the history of how a kit came to be, and then of course its lifespan. I had come across scale icons. It actually came up on my YouTube feed, and that's actually a conversation for another time. The recommended feed tends to be very good for me as a viewer, but I have issues with the algorithm as a creator, but we'll talk about that in another episode. Anyway, I came across Scale Icons, one of his videos. I don't think it was the original series Enterprise from AMT. But anyway, I found his channel, and I'm like, Phil, this is very good. This is very in-depth. I like this. And I didn't think much of it. I just subscribed and waited for new episodes to come out. One day I was on HobbyLink International. I'm a member over there. I've known Kenny for some time. Definitely a good place to check out. I would definitely recommend it. Good community. So I was browsing around there, and I made a post. I can't remember what the subject was. Probably K7, because I've been working on that for a while. And I noticed the Scale Icons name, obviously, and logo. Bear with me, this is a little stream of consciousness here. I can't remember what happened, but I definitely reached out to him, and I realized that Scale Icons is Ottawa local. Like, well, shit, we're in the same city. So I reached out, and I was like, hey, I'm doing this podcast thing, and do you want to get together and talk about it? So we were actually able to meet face-to-face in the city, which is always great, finding people local to you. Anyway, we got talking about things, and just very, very interesting story about how he decided to, rather than do the traditional, I'm going to build models and, show my process and talk about that, this is more of a historical aspect of like, okay, how did it come to be? How was it developed? Let's talk about its reissues over the years. Yeah, just from a storytelling perspective, very good, very thoroughly researched documentaries. So I thought he'd be a good guest to have on because of his top quality content, and I hope you feel the same. So check out our conversation. Thanks for joining me.
It's my pleasure.
Tell us about you. Who is Tim? Who is Scale Icons?
So, my name is Tim. I am the creator, host, chief researcher, and bottle washer at Scale Icons on YouTube. That's not all who I am. I've been building plastic models since as long as I can remember. One of my earliest memories actually is my dad building a I don't even know what it was. Some sort of German aircraft, World War II type of vintage aircraft, and I had to have been about 5 or 6 years old. And I remember vividly going downstairs one early morning to pick up the model that was ready for decals. Not knowing how decals worked, I just cut them out with a pair of scissors and slapped on some tester's glue and stuck them on. I said, "Boy, Dad's gonna be so proud of me." So.
That's the stuff right there.
Yeah, that was about 5 years old. I was pretty much hooked ever since. That was probably mid 70s, early 70s when that happened, and I've been building models ever since. Mm-hmm. Always been fascinated with science fiction subjects. They have always been the ones that kind of piqued my interest more than anything else. I build a little bit of everything. I go through phases. As a teenager, I built a lot of 1/35th scale models. Always building a little bit of plastic, but I know you're not too much younger than I am. You know as well as I do that there wasn't a lot of science fiction things to choose from in the 70s and 80s. I came from Western Canada. We didn't have a lot of hobby stores, and really all we had was the AMT Star Trek kits And then after Star Wars came out in '77, the Star Wars kits, and that was really it. It wasn't until the '80s where the hobby stores started getting in. I'm assuming older issues that had never sold, and they just scooped them up. I started seeing things like the Invaders UFO. I remember in the '80s seeing kits from a Japanese Star Wars knockoff called Message from Space. I was blown away they actually made kits for that. You're smiling as if you remember that one.
I actually don't, but it sounds amazing.
Yeah, I've never actually seen the movie either, but I just couldn't believe it. And then, of course, this was the era where like the BattleTech was coming out, and what I called in my my youthful ignorance, Japanese fighting robots, not realizing there's actually a term for it. But that was during the I believe it was Revell was issuing out all the Robotech kits, which are re-pops of I think they might have been Bandai kits, and it just kind of went from there. I've always built mostly Star Trek kits. I'm a Star Trek fan. I'm a Star Wars fan. I pretty much like anything science fiction. I don't like Coke and Pepsi for me. It doesn't really matter. They're both equally refreshing.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Yeah. So mostly Star Trek kits. Even to this day, I build mostly Star Trek for science fiction. I just find the designs somehow just tickle the nostalgia meter for me. Some Star Wars, not as much, and really anything science fiction that catches my fancy. I started up Scale Icon as a channel shortly before I retired from the military. I did 30 years in the Canadian military. As I was getting towards retirement date, I found myself building a few more models than I normally had because I started having a little bit more time on my hands. And I was looking for ways to still be productive and enjoy the hobby after I retired. And I just stumbled across a channel on YouTube. One of those channels where they basically coaches you how to make your own channel and what you need to do, how to negotiate the algorithms, everything like that. And it just seemed like, well, you know what? I've always been a creative kind of guy. Once long time ago, I wanted to go to film school. That didn't really pan out for me. So hey, this is kind of the next best thing, right? And it doesn't cost me anything. So I just started poking around and playing around with Windows Movie Maker, and I realized, hey, that's not really what I want to do. And I found during my explorations, I found a free editing software called HitFilm Express, which is actually pretty easy to use, and I was able to do some pretty incredible things just playing around with it. So I said, okay, what would I want to see on YouTube? Well, a few years before I had picked up an old Revell kit from the original Dune movie from 1984. And so I say, you know what? There's always building videos on there. I'm going to do like a build video. But before I do that, maybe I should, do a little thing. This is kind of an interesting backstory behind this model kit. And, maybe I'll do a quick little video to explain where the model came from. And I'll do like part 2 will be me starting to build the kit. Well, I had a lot of fun doing the researching for the little, where did this ornithopter model come from? I titled it How Revell Gambled on Dune and Lost Out. It's on my channel. It's actually my first video on my channel. And I approached like I would be doing any research project for university. I just started doing pub crawls, gathering my information, figuring out what was the story, learning the story as much as I could, and then putting it together as a video. And I launched it, and it got a little bit of interest, a little bit. And so I then carried on with my rest of the series on how I build the videos, and they were essentially slideshows because I wasn't really videotaping the models as I was building them. I found that a really hard hurdle to get past. I didn't have a good setup for it in my workroom. I would take still shots, but in terms of videoing, I just didn't do it. And I found that the quality of the build-up videos I was doing was just not what I wanted it to be. And, I recognized a lot of channels were doing it a lot better than I was. I think that's when I found your channel, I think, around that time frame. And I said, well, you know what? I don't like doing the build-ups, and they aren't getting a lot of views. But what we'll call it the documentary version, that was getting all the attention. And say, okay, all right. And I don't remember seeing a channel that really does this sort of thing, at least for science fiction kits. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? I remember James Cameron always used to say that he makes the movies he wants to see. Well, I realized, you know what, Tim, this is kind of the video I would like to see on YouTube. So I just started putting my effort into that. And after that, it was, I think I did a 3-part series on all the Batmobile models that had been commercially produced over the last 50 years or so. They started getting some traction for the channel. And then the real game changer for me was the AMT Enterprise 55th anniversary video. I was astounded. It basically went viral almost overnight. And I was kind of validating, you know, I know what I'm talking about. You put a lot of work into the video and no one seems to want to watch it. Well, seeing all the views come pouring in and all the positive comments, it was just really kind of gave me a real boot in the rear end. It's okay, right, this is how I'm going to focus it. Unfortunately, I took about 9 months off. I didn't realize I did that much time between videos.
So, okay, so let's talk about YouTube for a minute. Because as a creator, my experience is the YouTube algorithm sucks. But as a viewer, it can be very good. There's a number of channels I really love that I found through the recommended page, and one of your Batmobile ones came up, and I checked that out. I'm like, oh, this looks interesting. But I watched the other ones. Then I found you on HobbyLink International. I feel like I messaged you first about something. That's when we found
you might have. I can't remember because I remember, you know, and we might have discovered each other around the same time. You might have discovered me first. I can't really remember. Yeah. I just remember all of a sudden, bang! Oh, hey, look at this! Yeah.
Yeah. So that's. I was like, yeah, like this is interesting, and like you said, it we kind of started as a. I mean, here's the thing. You kind of answered most questions I would have.
Okay, great. Well, thanks.
Right.
You back if you ever want me.
Good podcast. We'll see you next time. But yeah, let's say you were getting close to retirement. You set it up, and then, but the sense it wasn't a conscious decision to do documentary style. You started as builds, and then kind of went where the views were going.
Yeah, well, and you know, and I kind of found the documentary stuff was more challenging to do. Challenging in the sense it was like stimulating the academic part of my brain, you know, where I like to, because it's very similar to what I did for a living in the military. You know, I use the research topics, find out the various aspects of it, write it up, essentially telling a story. And that kind of also, you know, there's a through line from that to my original career aspirations as a wide-eyed teenager where I wanted to go to film school. So it was a great way to kind of exercise the creative instinct without having to worry about paint fumes.
Right. That's well, I said it's interesting. It is very interesting. So like you said, you've noticed, and I said I don't think that anyone else is. If there is, it's never come up. Anyone else doing active histories of these kits that we love so much. I mean, it turns out your Enterprise one, the 67 Enterprise, was timing wise very good because it looks like they just repopped it again.
Yes, I was actually quite surprised to see that when I was working on the video. I believe the last time that round 2 had popped the kit was, I think it might have been the Tholian web version. Well, no, I think there's a kit that came after that one. But it had been a while since they'd repopped it. So yeah, it just came out again.
So let's talk about the research part of it, because I don't even know where to start. Like I did the Excelsior Enterprise B video, and the only things I could really pull from were the old round 2 collector model blogs, the ones that were still out there. So it's certainly not a comprehensive history. So, and you've done multiple kits. So correct me if I'm wrong. So you did a number of Dune kits.
I did one Dune. Well, it was really the one video was about all the Dune kits that Revell put out.
Okay.
I seem to recall the focus was mostly on the Ornithopter.
Right.
But I covered all the 4 or 5 kits they put out back in 84 or 85.
Okay, right. So one video that was encompassing versus. Yeah. Okay, then you did all the Batmobiles, which is that's quite the gamut of things to choose from. The 67 Enterprise, I imagine, was a bit easier just because it's been around in continuous release for so long.
Yes.
But how do you go about finding those, your history plus the little tidbits that exist that, no one knows about?
Well, I've been lucky that the topics I've covered so far have been talked about a lot over the last, well, I guess almost 50 years, pretty much for almost all of them. So there's a lot of material to draw from. So I approach it like I would do any type of university paper, where I would just start finding, okay, I'll do a literature review. What is actually out there to access?
Okay.
And like there are some number of sites, particularly for the Trek kits. And I know you talked about it in your Excelsior and your Enterprise B video, Ex Astra Sienta.
Yes.
A couple others as well. ScaleMates is a fantastic resource for getting the history of model kits. Sometimes just good old-fashioned Google Foo, history of the 1967 Enterprise, something like that. And I'll start reading through articles, interviews. I'll be making notes as I go along, keeping track of sites I'm accessing. Just as a quick aside as well, too, one of the reasons that really motivated me to double down on doing the documentary episodes was these are intellectual properties that have been around for a very long time. And in a lot of cases, we're now 2 generations removed from when these things were first released.
Right. Yeah.
And as you pointed out in your last podcast, we didn't have things like the internet or references, reliable references growing up. We just made do with what we had.
Oh my God. Trying to pause VHS and get a clear image.
Yeah.
To understand colors. And of course, once it was transferred to VHS, I mean, all the resolution's gone, all the details gone. So everything's still kind of gray and muted.
Yeah, so you've got that, or you've got grainy still photos in Starlog magazine.
Yeah.
Right? And none of them are ever really showing you what you're trying to see, which is a good clear view of, a particular piece of detail or a shade of paint or what have you.
Yeah.
So what I'd found over the years, I used to be a pretty active member of the Starship Modeler forums back when forums were a thing.
Yep.
I found there's a lot of almost urban myth type thinking when it came to a lot of different subjects. And you'd see constant arguments about which shade of gray was the Enterprise, or what did this really mean, or what was that really on the ship? And it got to the point where people were supporting their arguments with nothing more than opinion.
Right.
Well, that's what I've always heard, therefore it's right. And it's not because these people were uninformed, because there's just nothing to inform them, or no easy way to find the information. So it's kind of, and it still is one of my mission statements. And when I do these videos, is to try and just kind of cut through all the myth that has sprung up, especially in the case of Star Trek over the last 50 plus years. And just to educate, because as I'm going through these things too, just because of my age, I consider myself fairly well educated about some of the background stories, just through being exposed to it for so long.
Right.
But I'm still coming across some surprises. Perfectly good one was with my latest video on the shuttlecraft. Those little holes in the front of the shuttle were intended to be landing lights, right? Yes. I don't think anybody knew that until his name escapes me. Gary Carr, who was redesigning the kit for round 2. He had interviewed Gene Winfield, and Winfield said, "Yeah, no, this is what they're always intended for. And oh, by the way, we always intended to light up those nacelle Bassard tips.
Yeah,
we just didn't have the budget for it."
And that's the thing. Listen, that might be a whole other topic of rivet counters, but if the people from the source are like, "This was our intent. We couldn't do it, but this was our intent," I will accept that as a modeler. I'll accept that as accurate when doing my build. But then of course the whole thing about just make your model your own. But being able to find information right from the sources is interesting. And I've been trying to figure out something for the Enterprise D, the original 6 foot for production, trying to get the colors and certain details right. And I have talked to Mike Okuda, I've talked to Andrew Probert, I've talked to Doug Drexler. And if they did a photo survey when the model was done, it is locked away somewhere. No one knows where it is. So for trying to figure out like the hull pattern and the colors, you're looking at screen grabs, which are all over the map. As far as the Enterprise can look different in color, and I'm not talking about reused shots. I'm talking about if they took new shots for an episode, the color can be different from shot to shot within the episode.
Yeah, and it also depends too. Are you looking at the original miniature? Or are you looking at the smaller miniature that's built with more detail?
Yep.
And then if you bring in any screenshots from Generations, then you've really complicated things.
Well, exactly. Yeah, you got a whole new paint scheme there. But yes, it's very challenging because you got the 6 foot, the 2 foot, then the 4 foot that came along in season 3, which is its own beast. But it is somewhat faithful to the colors, because when you really look at the 4 footer, it was gray. So the 6 footer was kind of bluish gray and green, whereas Greg Jean's 4 footer was gray. It was there's no doubt about it. It was a gray and green, but it's very faithful to, because it's faithful. Let me say it this way: it's faithful to the colors of the 6 footer in how it was processed in post. Because when they did the processing, all the blue got sucked out of it.
Yeah, desaturated or something.
Yeah, exactly. And in season 2, they actually, or I think even late in season 1, they started processing it in such a way that the green. They took the green out too. So for the rest of its run, in new shots, it was gray on gray.
Well, that brings up an interesting point when it comes to colors, and this comes up all the time especially in the Star Trek modeling subgenre. Is what color is a particular ship? What was the intention?
Yeah,
and this. I mean, yeah, we can talk about the Enterprise till the cows come home, but I think where it really just makes me laugh are arguments of what color green should a Romulan warbird be. Well, the right answer is gray, because it was painted gray and lit with green lights.
Well, yeah, because you got that the first. Yeah, when you look at that, when you look at the studio model under, it must either fluorescence. I would assume, since it's probably the few I've seen seem to be like in a warehouse, not like Christie's auction. So we'll assume fluorescence.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very there is green in it, but it's a very, very dark with and like the brushed on detail for the
feathers.
Feathers. But when you see it in the first time in it wasn't Conspiracy, it was the Neutral Zone. That was the name of the episode, the Neutral Zone.
Yeah,
that's like a bright green.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was, and don't quote me on this, but I'm almost certain I read an article, and it might have been with Andrew Probert. Or somebody involved in production, design, or effects at the time. They said that the miniature was like a dark gray, and then they used bright green lights to shine onto it to give it that sort of ethereal, otherworldly green glow to it.
Okay.
Which is why trying to paint it that color is so hard to replicate.
Well, okay, if you're talking about colors, the bird of prey.
Yeah.
In Star Trek 3, it is bright green, like not like neon green, but.
Is that zinc chromium green? I think is the color.
Yeah, that's kind of actually a really good analog to it. But then in Star Trek 4, it was more muted. In Star Trek 5, it was really muted. But I think that's also because the effects house didn't really know what they were doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the colors are all over the place. So what is accurate? Accurate is whatever screen grab you choose to draw from.
Yeah. Well, what I try to do, because I think we've all had, like you mentioned, the term rivet counter, and like my kids and I like to jokingly call people who are just too literal about their Star Trek models. We call them dilithium counters. No one likes having something say, "Go, you painted it wrong," or "You got the wrong shade of color. It's not the right color of gray." So what I always do is I never build a canon ship if I'm building a Constellation class. Yeah, exactly.
You're not talking about colors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I will just I'll get some custom decals, and I'll give my ship a different name. That way, if it's not the right shade of gray or blue or white or whatever, well, that's what color this one is.
Well, I will say one thing. Like as far as the builder goes, I feel like, and I'm surprised there isn't more variation. But Klingon ships should be, if anything, you're licensed to be creative. Now, this is going by on-screen stuff we know. Now, obviously, they only made one model of each ship. Sometimes they repaint a little bit, but even that's a painstaking process, so they tend to use the same model over and over again. It looks the same. But in universe, the way the Klingon Defense Force is set up, each individual house contributes their ships and manpower to the Klingon Defense Force. So, in the same way that Kronos 1 is a completely different color scheme from the regular Katinga, there should be a huge variation in how each ship looks and how each ship is painted.
Yeah.
And
that explains why you see in the original series, you've got that sort of purplish gray and the pale green on the D7s.
yeah.
You've got the Katinga color from the motion picture, which is a very militaristic, almost olive drab with some highlights on there. You've got the Kronos 1, you've got the Bird of Prey, and then you've got that, my least favorite color is the Vorcha from Next Generation, that sort of that teal blue.
Yeah, so, and that's the thing. That thing was repainted 3 times.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it had the teal blue with with a few highlights of red. And that's why we saw it. And then later it got more red added to it. Deep Space Nine Way of the War, there's a bunch of yellow trim all over it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it wasn't the physical model, it was the CGI model that they did for later Deep Space Nine. That's dark green and red.
Yeah.
So you can, modelers, you can do whatever you want.
Oh, exactly.
Really.
And like I built the AMT Katinga, the smaller one, earlier this year, and I made a conscious choice to paint it like the original D7s from the TV series.
Nice.
I toned down the purple on the gray and went more like a gunmetal gray. Sorry, gunship gray, and tried to replicate the pale green. And actually, I kind of like how it looks. So I've got the 1350 D7. I'm really struggling. Do I want to do that complex Katinga paint scheme and pull my hair out, or I want to do something a little bit different?
Well, that's nice. So I actually have the Katinga and the Kronos one now. And yeah, so you did the Batmobiles.
Yep.
You did the Enterprise. You did the not K7. You did the shuttlecraft.
Yes.
Which, how's that one doing? Because last I looked, for me, on the outside looking, I feel like the views are lower than they should be. So I'm not.
Yeah,
sure
the views, I'm actually quite surprised, are fairly low. I think only because, well, hey, I mean, you put the Enterprise in anything, and you're gonna get eyeballs.
Yeah.
Star Trek fans, myself included, will generally, if I see the Enterprise, oh, what are they talking about? The shuttlecraft is a little bit more of an esoteric topic, so I'm not overly surprised by it. I am happy though that it is getting a lot of views, more than my other videos have. As
it should be, because look at it. We do know the K7. I'm working on K7, so I got that in my brain. The shuttlecraft is a popular subject because they tried to release, as you discussed, they tried to release it. Then they're like, no, we just can't do it, and everyone was disappointed. Then out of nowhere, like, here it is, like 10 years later.
Yeah.
Like, here you go, and everyone's like, what?
I actually remember when their first version of the shuttlecraft came out. I remember, it was, as you say, it came out of nowhere. It was like, I thought this was an urban myth. Is this real?
Yeah. I mean, they did, and this is when after they did the shuttlecraft, they stopped doing collector model blogs, which sucks, because it was good behind the scenes. Like, hey, here's a little peek inside of the world of Round 2. Yeah,
and a shout out to Round 2, like the collector model blogs that Gary Kerr did for the development of the shuttlecraft model. That was formed a huge part of my research for this latest video. Some really good information there.
Oh yeah, it's great. Just so much stuff in there. So it's unfortunate they're not doing that anymore. Look, and I realize that y'all are busy at the office and whatnot, but y'all made a mistake when you didn't hire a social media person years ago, because social media is a full-time job.
It certainly is.
And they're like, it's fine. They do their monthly, hey, here's what's going on the trucks this month. Okay, that's great. Unfortunately, I got to pick on Jamie a little bit. They've done a couple videos where they had him talking about subjects, and the man has no screen presence at all.
I'm not going to throw any stones in that particular glass house. I like to think of myself as having a face for radio and a voice for silent movies.
Look, you got a good narrator voice. You do. But I mean, it's just kind of like, here's our thing. and here is our other thing. He was like, what is going on? Like, this is a man that has a passion for science fiction subjects. It's like, what's going on? There's a fight. Oh, and then when they did the live at Wonderfest and didn't have any audio.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
Oh, guys, come on. Anyway, so we kind of got sidetracked. So it's that hard thing about research. So I said, you go to the sources you can find that exist. Scale model or scale. Which is it?
Scalemates.
Scalemates, XR Sienta, the Collector Model blog, anything the companies put out. But I mean, that little minutia, like, it might have happened afterwards. You were telling me that someone involved with a part of the shuttle, whether originally or the creating the new meshes for it, reached out to you after you produced the video.
No, I don't remember that happening. Oh, I know what it was. After I put the shuttlecraft video online,
Mm-hmm.
and it started getting some attention, I actually got contacted by. I was switch contact as he made a comment on the video.
Mm-hmm.
I saying, "Oh wow, this is incredibly accurate. So it's exactly I remember the process." And so I kind of latched onto that and talking.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually his name is Robert Bonshun. He was involved in visual effects for Next Generation, DS9, and Voyager.
Right, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and he said, he says I love going on to a video and actually learning something from my field. He says I learned stuff about that shuttlecraft I didn't know, and that's after years working in the Star Trek art offices with Drexel and everybody else, and having a 2-hour conversation with Matt Jeffries about the shuttlecraft. And I mean, that was hearing that from someone who did that for a living in that realm. I mean, that's talk about your validation. That made me feel great. And that's okay. Obviously, I'm doing something right here. If I've got people like that are finding some value in what I'm doing.
Well, it is an excellent concept as far as research and production goes. I mean, it's fantastic. So, let's hope the algorithm rewards you, because it's good information for people to have. Just you build these kits, but you don't really think much about it beyond it existing. But how did it go from an idea to a kit in your hand?
Yeah, and that's listen. I'll be honest. I'm not too concerned about any tangible rewards. Do I make a little bit of money from the YouTube AdSense program? Very, 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 very little.
Tens and tens of cents.
I'm really hoping for the channel to take off so I can use the proceeds to pay for my next trip to Hobby House to buy some paint.
There you go.
But what is valuable to me is just getting a little bit of feedback from somebody who is like me and appreciates what they're watching. And I really felt that with the Enterprise video, because I got people writing in who said, okay, you know what? You've just triggered a memory I had building this kit with my dad back in the 70s. I think I can't remember if I made this comment in the video or not, or if it fell to the cutting room floor. But I talked at the top of the show about remembering the first kit I ever worked on with my dad. Well, the Enterprise was also one of the kits I worked on with my dad. I think I was about 8 or 9 years old. He had bought it as a gift for me, and I remember we built it together. But he painted it for me. And at the time, we didn't have a color TV. We had black and white, so I'd never seen Star Trek in color. I'd never seen color photographs of anything. So he painted it as best he could based on how it looked on the box, which I guess in a weird way kind of goes to the whole discussion of what color is the Enterprise, because to his eye, the box image on the old AMT box, it looked like it was a green ship. So he painted it out of the Testor's bottles. I think the saucer ended up being metallic emerald. Okay. The nacelles and the secondary hull ended up being metallic blue. And well, the Bassards were metallic red.
Right. Oh, if they put colored lights on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we didn't know because we did never seen it in color.
Yeah.
But I got so many comments about people who had similar stories about building this kit with their dad, and it just brought back such great memories. And really, that's what I'm doing these things for, because they bring back great memories for me as a kid or as a teenager, building some of these rare kits that just you can't find anymore unless they get repopped. And you know what? It's also too, sometimes I want to know, why did they do this? Why didn't they do that? And it's fun to try and discover that for myself and make the story for everybody else as well too.
It's there's a couple things, and bear with me. So first of all, that's partly the reason the podcast exists, because there's none, at least that I found, they're devoted to science fiction model making. None. It's just a bunch of modeling. Like some are dedicated to model cars, some are to planes. The most, it seems like the ones I found are kind of just like, here's broad strokes of everything, and here's our 4-hour podcast. So this is meant specifically for people in the niche, and about getting recognizing that community and getting the right information in front of the right people, whether it's a product or a documentary. Like, hey, check this out. You can learn all this stuff. But you'd mentioned a lot of people having that past, right? I built this with my dad or whatnot, and and unfortunately, I don't think it worked. But you commented about in the video, they released the build along as part of the reissues, the 67. Right? That's just what I call it, the 67 Enterprise and the 1000 scale Enterprise.
Yeah. And
I remember the box art. I'm thinking that's a good idea. I don't think it's going to take off, but.
Yeah, I got a lot of flack for that I made a little joke about that being some quote unquote unintentional sexism, and I wasn't trying to suggest that that having a father and son building a model was somehow a bad thing. I was just making a comment that, hey, you know what? It's the 21st century. There are a lot of females in modeling. I saw some pictures online the other day. I was showing to my wife. I said, look at this is great. Someone had posted a video of building a science fiction kit. I can't remember which one it was, with their daughter. And representation is important. And the point only was, hey, you know what? Just show a picture of a dad and a daughter. Like, why does it always have to be a dad and a son? Yes, predominantly that's the demographics, but
but that's the thing, though, is it? Because look, I will tell you, my experience is women love miniatures.
Yeah, it's true.
So don't be like, yeah, it's only for men. Shut the fuck up.
Well, it's unfortunate, but I think it's like you talked about gatekeeping earlier as well too, and I think there's a certain segment of any hobby, you're going to have that small percentage of people who feel they have to protect it for whatever reason, and you like Star Trek, do you? Well, name me 5 episodes. I'm like, come on. Right? It's like, in my experience, women don't build models. That's not true at all. Go in your hobby store, go online. Hobby Link International, there's plenty of female builders on there.
Yeah.
Starship Modeler, plenty of female builders on there. I think these are people who should be welcomed into the hobby, not
well, that's the thing, right?
Or minimized.
Is that thing that the demographic skews toward men? I'm like, but is that because men are making women feel unwelcome? So yeah, don't give me that. Yeah. Don't give me that. But anyway, like I said, it was good. Regardless, it was a good idea. I don't know if the subject matter was great for younger people, just given the vintage of the subject.
Well, I did mention that in my video. I said it's okay, great. You've got the 67 Enterprise and you got the 1000 scale Enterprise, both in the same kit, and just based on the illustrations. Okay, Dad will work on the bigger 67 model. Junior will work on the smaller 1000 scale kit.
Though it turns out
Yeah,
that,
no, follicle kit actually is a little more complex than the
yeah,
67
yeah,
kit.
but maybe your kid should work on the big one.
That was actually marketed towards kids in 1967.
Yeah. The but yeah, so yeah, it's I'm definitely with you there about getting sharing your passion and getting the word out, and yes, that's why I kind of, as I talk to people, it's kind of not just let's talk about this specific model every episode. Let's talk about these subjects. Whether it's wargaming or gunplas or 3D printing, which is also apparently divisive, which I didn't know about until recently.
Yeah, it's. I'm actually quite surprised about that as well too. I'm a member of IPMS Ottawa here in town,
Mm-hmm.
and it's we're all pretty accepting of 3D printing. We actually have a member who's actually does some amazing 3D printing of his own.
Mm-hmm.
But I was actually quite surprised. Apparently, IPMS USA does not consider 3D printed parts or 3D printed models to be models.
Ugh.
But I know there's also a lot of issues or controversy with IPMS Ottawa that we don't see up here in Canada. So I can't really say one way or another if that's true or not. The way I look at it is it's just another tool in the toolbox. It's it's
exactly.
I remember when resin started coming out, when resin parts started coming out and resin models, there was a percentage of the community that didn't agree with resin. No, same. Do you remember the big there's a big thing in the early 90s with vinyl figures? Horizon.
I remember.
Vinyl.
Yep.
Everyone produced vinyl figures, right? Because that was the big thing. Well, that's not a proper kit. No. Well, you know what? It's if you have to assemble it in some way, you got to take time to paint it and to create something. It's, as far as I'm concerned, that's a model. And it's you're talking about that with on your last podcast. Our gaming miniatures models. Yeah, if you have to put something together and paint it.
Oh yeah.
It's like figure painting. Someone paints a bust, right? Well, are you going to say it's not a model? Sure. No one's going to say that because they have put an enormous amount of work into painting that. Yeah. It's the same with the gaming miniatures. It's resin, 3D printed.
Oh yeah,
there's room for everybody in this community, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, exactly. I said that. So I don't understand why some people feel they have ownership over it. And it's like, no, it can only be this thing. It's like, nah, not for me.
Yeah, no, just build what you like, and that's really what it all comes down to. Like, sure, there are people who build for a living. I'm not one of them. I suspect most people who build models are doing it purely for the enjoyment of building it and to try and better their skills. That's why I build.
So, what's next in the pipeline for you? Anything you can talk about?
Yeah, I can talk. Well, right now, what I'm working on is just getting my some builds ready for Capcom in 2 weeks. They hold the model contest every 2 years. In this case, it's been 3 because of COVID.
Right.
And I always, find myself, okay, right, I got 2 years for my next set of builds and somehow, some way, I find myself in a mad dash a week before the contest trying to finish 4 or 5 kits. I don't know how that happens. That's where I am right now.
You just thrive under pressure.
Yeah, that's right. Pressure makes diamonds and nervous breakdowns. Once that's done, I'm going to get back into production for my next video. I will say this: it's a Star Trek topic. I'm not purely a Star Trek channel, but it's just the way it's kind of worked out. This one's a very important one, actually. Very good friend of mine is dealing with is in a fight with cancer right now, and she is a massive Star Trek Voyager fan. So I'm going to look into a little bit on the history of the Voyager models.
Nice.
That's going to be interesting for me. I never built any of them. I don't know why Revell produced the Voyager as opposed to AMT,
weird.
But I'm going to find out. And after that, I've got a whole hockey sock of video topics I'm planning on looking at.
Nice.
I'm fully retired. I'm hoping to have more time to work on video, so I don't have a 9-month gap between them. I want to narrow that down to something a little bit more workable. But I've got suggestions that have been given to me by some of my viewers that I'm going to be following up on. It's a YouTube channel, so I'm going to have to do a top 10 list at some point.
Yep, that's right.
But one thing I always ask my viewers, if you've got suggestions, let me know, because there's a good chance that what you're suggesting is something that everyone else wants to watch as well too.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we talked about a number of things. Just kind of let the conversation go where it will. Anything you want to talk about I didn't bring up?
Ooh, the ball's back in my court. No, I can't really think of anything. I think we pretty much covered everything on the channel. Is there anything you wanted to talk about regarding the channel or the process?
That's a good question. You're just gonna bump it back to me, eh?
Well, it's like volleyball, right?
Yeah, exactly. So,
well, I
guess I should host my podcast.
You're facilitating the podcast. I can talk a little bit more about the research aspect, and that is, I find, is probably about 70% of my effort goes into research. I will spend weeks doing research on the video topics. And not only am I, getting the story down, I'm also looking for appropriate illustrations, photographs, videos to try and illustrate what I'm talking about. Because it's unlike a podcast, the YouTube channel is very much a visual medium, and I need to make sure that not only is the imagery telling the story, supporting the story, it's also keeping the viewer's attention. Now, the trick, of course, is there's a lot of copyright material out there. Now, fair use will only get you so far.
Yeah.
So what I try and do is I try and reach out to, if I'm showing a picture of a model someone has built, I try and contact them to just to try and get them to sign off on it. I've been able to make some good contacts with that for people in the future who've helped me out with some of my videos.
Good.
Sometimes it's just impossible to try and find the original author of the photo, and Google Lens or TinEye has generally not been terribly helpful in trying to find out where the picture came from.
Right.
So I do what I can to try and make sure credit is given to the people who have built something, or that things are properly credited. But I always find during the editing process that I think I've got everything down, and no, I need to find this, or I'll change the script as I'm going through. That's something I tend to do as well when I fix it in post. I'll find that a part of my script isn't really quite getting it across the way I wanted it to, so I'll kind of change it on the fly. But that just means another week's worth of digging through the internet trying to find photographs and video clips.
Well, so I don't imagine it's easy, the process, because it's it's not like, say, anything from contemporary history, we'll say.
Yeah.
Or you can go to an encyclopedia, or there's lots of resources. This thing, no one's logged their we're going to develop this kit. We should keep a log of this, and here's all the people who worked on it, and here's all the things we did.
Well, yeah, and I'll give you, for instance, when I did my first Dune video on the ornithopter, I wrote to it was produced by Revell USA in 1985, right? Which really doesn't kind of sort of exist anymore, at least the company in the version it was back then. So I did contact Revell USA, whatever they have, and then Revell Germany, and I said, okay, I'm doing an article on this. This is the kit number. This was produced. I know this. I'm looking for that. And someone from public relations contact me and discuss this further. No, I never heard anything back. And there's multiple emails went out.
Yeah.
And so it's at a certain point, I just kind of have to say, all right, this might not be 100% accurate, but it's as accurate as I can possibly get it. And do I make mistakes? I think I've made a mistake in pretty much every video I've produced. Some of them are real facepalm moments. Like the most recent one, I showed I had the wrong Star Trek set tour in my video.
All right.
That was pretty damn embarrassing. But I do the best I can, and I'm certainly open to constructive criticism. And like, if anyone has any ideas for videos, I am all ears.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Well, definitely looking forward to more, and obviously, spreading the word as far as I can. Anyway, my limited audience, but still, just getting a few more people on board. Like, hey, this is some cool shit.
It takes time, and what I found with my channels as well too. I mean, like, I've got 1,600 or so subscribers. It's a drop in the bucket compared to a lot of channels out there.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm a tiny channel.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a lot smaller before that Enterprise video. So all it takes is just the one video to try and get some traction and get shared out of there, and you get noticed a bit more. You'll be the same way.
I think
right now, I think we're the science fiction scale model cinematic universe here in Ottawa.
Yes.
You and I.
Yeah.
So I think we can continue working together going forward just to try and
that would be
get that
cool.
rising tide to float both of our boats.
I was so yesterday I had Sophie Rose from Rose Models on. She's at the UK, does 3D printing and design. I'm actually printing up the silo for K7. They never added to it.
Oh,
we talked about it. She designed it overnight.
Really?
And so we're going to give it a try. And just same thing. It's like, because she does commissions now, whether it's designing something or designing and printing, it depends what she does. Anyway, that's another conversation going somewhere with that. But anyway, the point was like about getting these resources out to modelers. Tim, Scale Icons, thank you for all your info about what you do and how you do it. Where can people find you?
Well, obviously there's the Scale Icons YouTube channel, just like that, Scale Icons. I'm also available on Facebook and on Instagram.
Nice. And sorry, that's me having a bit of a brain fart. Like I said, I do appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on and chatting about things. I'm going to see you in a couple of weeks by the looks of it.
Are you entering anything into Capcom, or are you just
I'm just going to go check out Capcom, get some video, and talk about it, and just hey, here's I am, and here's this and that. But hopefully, we'll have you back again, and we'll talk about whatever we talk about.
Yeah, I really enjoyed myself, Jason. Thanks for inviting me on, and I'm looking forward to our next appearance together.
That's awesome. I appreciate it.
That was a good chat with Tim, actually, our second chat, because as I said, we met in person once before, prior to the podcast. And he's a member of the IPMS, local IPMS, which I actually still need to go to one of their meetings. But, work and life tend to get in the way. But having said that, if you enjoy this conversation, I would highly recommend going to check out Tim's content. He's got a handful of videos. More on the way, but as you would expect, it's kind of a slow turnaround based on the amount of research involved just to come up with the basic storyline. That doesn't include voiceovers, all the filler material, all your visuals and whatnot. So as a individual doing this, it's actually a pretty big accomplishment. So would recommend. All his socials will be in the show notes, and I hope you come back next time for more talk about sci-fi model making, sci-fi models. So thanks a lot, Plastic Addicts, and I look forward to seeing you next time.